Morning, everyone. From today onwards, we are going to start our discussion related to REST API and microservices. As part of today's session, we are going to understand what is REST API, how to develop REST API, and how to develop project by using microservices architecture. So as part of this REST API and microservices classes, we are going to understand what is distributed application, what is a distributed application, why we need to go for distributed applications, why we need to go for distributed applications. Already we are developing standalone applications and web applications. Then what is the purpose of going for this distributed application development? Then next one, distributed technologies. In order to develop these distributed applications, what are the technologies available? Then we are going to learn about provider development, testing using Postman, how to develop a provider and how to test that provider by using Postman tool. Then we will learn about consumer development, and we can say here Swagger documentation for the provider. Then we will learn about consumer development. Then we will go for exception handling. So these are the things that we are going to learn as part of our REST API. What is distributed application? Why we need to go for distributed application development? What are the distributed technologies available in the market, and how to develop a provider and how to test that provider by using Postman, and what is Swagger, how to add Swagger documentation to the provider, and what is consumer, how to develop the consumer, and how to handle the exceptions in the REST API. So once this part is completed, then we are going to learn about microservices. In the microservices, there are a lot of topics available, like what is service registry, why we need to go for service registry, what is admin server, and what is Jipkin server, what is admin server, what is Jipkin server, what is API gateway, Then next one, we are going to talk about ribbon for load balancing. Then we will talk about inter-service communication by using FIAN client, how to work with FIAN client for the inter-service communication, what is a circuit breaker, and we are going to learn about Kafka, and we will learn about Redis, and we will learn about config server, and we are going to learn about security. Right? So these are the topics that we are going to learn as part of our upcoming sessions, REST API and microservices. Guys, can you please read the topic names that we are going to cover? Distributed application, why we need to go for distributed application, distributed technologies, provider development, how to test the provider using Postman, what is Swagger, consumer development, exception handling, microservices, service registry, admin server, Jipkin server, API gateway, ribbon for the load balancer, FIAN client, what is a circuit breaker, what is a Kafka, what is Redis, what is a config server, and how to secure our microservices by using Spring Security. Are you guys able to understand the agenda? Are you guys able to understand the agenda? All right, good. Now, so let's get started. Guys, here in the Java, by using these Java technologies, we can develop three types of applications. One is standalone application. Second one is web application. And the third one is distributed application. So we already know what is a standalone application. Runs only in one machine. Only one user can access. Only one user can access at a time. Any application which is running only in one computer, and if only one user can access that application at a time, then that application is called as a standalone application. Then what is web application? Web application nothing but multiple users can access at a time. Any application which can be accessed by multiple users at a time, that application is called as a web application. Then what is distributed application? Distributed applications are nothing but web services. Distributed applications are nothing but web services. Distributed application nothing but if one application is communicating with if one application is communicating with another application, then it is called as distributed application. Okay, if one application is communicating with another application, then it is called as a distributed application. So we have seen several examples also earlier. Passport application will be communicating with the Aadhaar application. Okay, Make My Trip application is communicating with the IRCTC application. So like this, in the market, banking applications are coming. Google Pay application is communicating with your banking application. Okay, like this, there are so many projects available in the market which are communicating with the other applications. If one application is communicating with the another application, then those applications are called as distributed applications. Are you guys able to follow me? If one application is communicating with another application, then it is called as distributed application. Passport application will communicate with the Aadhaar application. Make My Trip application will communicate with the IRCTC application. Google Pay, Phone Pay applications will communicate with the banking applications. Okay, why to develop distributed applications? First, we understood what is distributed application. If one project is communicating with another project, then it is called as a distributed application. Now the question is, why to develop distributed applications? Can anyone tell me? Why to develop distributed application? Any guess, guys? Already we are developing standalone applications and web applications. Then why one application should communicate with the another application? Why we need to go for this? Why we need to go for this distributed applications development, guys? Can anyone tell me that? Can anyone tell me why we need to go for this distributed application development? Come on. Why to go for distributed application development? Distributed applications we are developing for code reusability. For code reusability. Okay. For code reusability, we will go for this. And next one, for loosely coupling. For loosely coupling. These are the two main reasons why we are going for distributed applications development. These are the two main reasons why we are going for developing two applications, right, guys? So one application is going to communicate with the another application. The first reason, to reuse the code. Second reason, for loosely coupling. How code reusability will be achieved? Let's assume that. Guys, here IBM people developed one application which is called weather forecaster. Okay, so they developed one weather forecaster application. Weather forecast application is available. So as part of this application, they are communicating with the satellites to get the weather information. So they are communicating with the satellite to get the weather information. Now, IBM people already developed this weather forecast application. In that application, they have already implemented the logic to communicate with the satellite. They already written the logic to communicate with the satellite as part of this weather forecast application. Now, in my project also, I am having the same requirement. Okay. Now here, IBM people spent around 2 years of time, 2 years of time to develop that project, and they spent almost 5 crores of money. In order to complete that project, they spent 2 years of time and they spent 5 crores of money to develop this project, which can communicate with the satellite to get the weather information. To get the weather information. So already they spent 2 years of time, already they spent 5 crores of money in order to develop that project. Their project got success. Their project is able to communicate with the satellite. Based on the zip code, it is able to get the weather information. Okay. Now, similarly, here I am also having the same requirement to communicate with the satellite. So in order to communicate with the satellite, I need to develop the project from the scratch. So for me also, it may take 2 years and it may take 5 crores of money to complete the project. But if you observe, whatever the requirement I have, whatever the logic that I need to develop, that is already developed by IBM company. That is already developed by IBM company. Instead of I am redeveloping the same logic, I will reuse the logic which is available in the IBM. Are you guys getting my point? So IBM people developed one project called weather forecast information. When weather forecast information application they developed, they spent 2 years of time, 5 crores of money. Their project development got success. Now I want to develop same kind of project with the same requirement. Instead of I am redeveloping the same project, I want to reuse the logic available in the IBM. So that's where my application will communicate with the IBM application. My application will send the request to the IBM application. IBM application will give the response to me. So here, my application is communicating with the IBM application to reuse the logic which they have already developed. So if one application is communicating with the another application, those applications are called as distributed applications. So what is the meaning of distributed application? If one application is communicating with another application, then it is called as distributed application. Why to develop distributed applications, guys? For code reusability and for the loosely coupling, we are going to develop distributed application. Are you guys able to understand? What is the purpose of going for distributed application? Are you guys able to understand what is the purpose of going for distributed application? Code reusability. Whatever the logic that I want to develop that is already developed by someone, so we can reuse the logic instead of redeveloping the logic. Now, IBM people will charge some license amount from me yearly, 1 lakh rupees I need to pay because I don't need to develop the logic. They already developed it. I want to access their logic. So in order to access their logic, they will charge some amount from me. They will charge some amount from me. Okay. Now let's go for another scenario. So we are all are using IRCTC application to book the train tickets. Okay. Indian Railway that we are managing by using IRCTC application. IRCTC application having its own database. IRCTC is owner for the Indian Railway tickets booking. IRCTC application knows what are the railway stations available in the India, what are the trains available, train schedules, everything is available in the IRCTC application. Now, a customer can communicate with the IRCTC application directly in order to book a train ticket. Customer as an end user, we can communicate with the IRCTC application to book the train tickets. That means IRCTC application is providing C2B communication. What is the meaning of that C2B communication? IRCTC application having user interface. End user can communicate with this IRCTC application in order to book the train ticket. End user can communicate with the IRCTC application in order to book the train ticket. So C2B is available. Now, when the IRCTC application is running successfully in the market, other people got the same idea, like Make My Trip is available. Make My Trip is one application. They are providing the facility to book the flight tickets. Now, Make My Trip people thought like this: we are already providing the facility to book the flight tickets. Why can't we provide the facility to book the train tickets also? So that's why what Make My Trip people wants to do now. Make My Trip people want to develop the logic to book the train tickets also. But Make My Trip is a private company. They cannot access IRCTC database directly. It is not possible. IRCTC is a central government project that is managing by our Indian central government. Okay. Make My Trip is a private company. Somebody from Bangalore started this Make My Trip company. Now, in the Make My Trip company also, they want to provide the facility to book the train ticket. So can Make My Trip people directly access IRCTC database and show what are the trains available and book the train tickets? No. Make My Trip is a private company. IRCTC is a government project. IRCTC is the owner for the Indian railway system. Okay. So IRCTC application can access all the information related to Indian railway system. But Make My Trip cannot access that. Now here, Make My Trip people also want to provide the facility for the customers to book the train tickets. But here, IRCTC people developed this project by spending 5 years of time. Okay, 5 years of time they spent, and 10 crores of money they invested. The central government invested to develop this application. Now, if you Make My Trip also want to book the train tickets, they should also spend same amount of time, same amount of budget. 5 years of time, 10 crores of money they have to spend. But why to spend that again? Already IRCTC people developed that, right? Already that logic is available. Whatever the logic Make My Trip want, that logic already available in the IRCTC. Then what Make My Trip will do? Make My Trip application will communicate with the IRCTC application to reuse the logic which is already available. Make My Trip application will reuse the logic which is already available in the IRCTC. So in the Make My Trip also, you can book the train ticket. In the IRCTC also, you can book the train ticket. So if you book the train ticket in the IRCTC, that means it is a C2B communication. IRCTC having user interface directly to book the ticket. If you go for Make My Trip to book the ticket, this is called as B2B communication, business to business. IRCTC doing some business, Make My Trip also doing some business. As part of business to business, those two applications are communicating. So whatever the logic that is required for the Make My Trip, they are not developing. They are using the logic which is already available in the IRCTC. So here, Make My Trip application will communicate with the IRCTC application to reuse the business logic. Okay. Not only Make My Trip, guys, there is another website available which is called Yatra. There is another website available which is called Yatra. By using this Yatra also, you can book the train ticket. What is the meaning of that? Yatra application is communicating with the IRCTC application to reuse the logic to book the train ticket. So this is also B2B communication. This is also B2B communication. Yatra application is communicating with the IRCTC application to book the train ticket. So there are total 3 ways you can book the train ticket now. You can book the train ticket by using IRCTC directly. You can book the train ticket by using Make My Trip. You can book the ticket by using Yatra. So this IRCTC is providing the services to other applications. This IRCTC is acting as a provider for the other application. Make My Trip, Yatra, these are acting as consumers for the IRCTC. So whenever you are going to see the distributed application, in distributed application, 2 actors will be available. In distributed applications, 2 actors will be available. Okay. What are those 2 actors, guys? One is called provider, second one is called consumer. So whenever you go for any distributed application architecture, you will see two actors, guys. One is called as provider, second one is called consumer. Who is called as a provider? The application which is giving services to other applications. Any application which is already having the logic, giving the services to other application. The application which is giving services to other application is called as a provider application. Here, example, we can say IRCTC. In the IRCTC, already logic is available to book the train ticket. Now, IRCTC giving that logic, giving the service to the other application. So the application which is giving services to other application is called provider application. Then what is consumer application? The application which is accessing services from other applications. The application which is accessing services from other application is called as a consumer. Example, we can say Make My Trip is one consumer application. Yatra is one consumer application. So this like this. The applications which are reusing the services of other applications are called as consumer applications. So are you guys able to understand what is distributed application? Why we need to go for distributed application? What is the architecture and which actors will be available in the distributed application? So the application which is communicating with another application is called as a distributed application. Passport project is communicating with other project, distributed application. Make My Trip application communicating with IRCTC, distributed application. Google Pay is communicating with your bank application, that is distributed application. Why to develop these distributed applications? For code reusability. So whatever the code that you want to develop, if it is already developed by someone, then you can reuse that logic by using this distributed application. And the second one is for loosely coupling. Instead of developing everything in one application, we are distributing the logic to multiple applications. Now, distributed application architecture. So when we go for distributed application architecture, mainly two actors will be available. One is called as provider and the second one is called as consumer. So what is the meaning of a provider? The application which is giving services to other application is called as a provider application. The application which is accessing services from other application is called as a consumer application. Now, so here guys, another thing that we need to understand, what is interoperability? What is interoperability? When we are developing the distributed applications, we need to make sure that the applications are interoperable. Interoperability, nothing but the application which is developed by using one language should be able to communicate with the application which is developed in the another language. Here my consumer application is available and here my provider application is available. There is no rule that provider and consumer will be developed by using same language. Provider may be developed by using Java, consumer may be developed by using different technology. Still, my consumer application should be able to communicate with the provider application. So here, sending the request and getting the response, right? So here, if one application is communicating with another application, those are called distributed application. So in the distributed application, two actors will be available. One is called as a provider and another one is called as a consumer. Who is called provider? Who is called consumer? The application which is giving the services to other applications are called as provider application. The application which is accessing the services from other application is called as a consumer application. Now, for example, let me take provider is IRCTC application. Okay. Consumer is Make My Trip application. Make My Trip application, MTM. Right. Now here guys, there is no rule that both applications will be developed by using same technology. Now here, assume that my provider application is developed by using Java. My consumer application is developed by using .NET. Still, those applications should be able to communicate. So, irrespective of the technology, irrespective of the platform, if two applications are communicating, then those applications are called as interoperable applications. So, we are talking about interoperability. What is the meaning of interoperability? Irrespective of the platform, irrespective of the language, if two applications are communicating with each other, then those are called as distributed applications with interoperability. Okay, not language specific, not language specific, not platform specific, not language specific, not platform specific. What is the meaning of that? Irrespective of the language. So two provider and consumer can be developed by using different technologies. Maybe developed by using same technology or maybe developed by using different technology. Irrespective of the platform, irrespective of platform and language, if two applications are communicating, irrespective of a platform and irrespective of language, if two applications are communicating, then those are called as interoperable applications. Those are called as interoperable applications. So what is the meaning of interoperable applications? My Java application should be able to communicate with the .NET application. Okay, my Java application should be able to communicate with the Python application. My Java application should be able to communicate with the Node.js application. Okay, irrespective of the platform, irrespective of the language, if your application is communicating with other application, then your application is called as interoperability. Then your application is called as interoperability. So guys, can you tell me what is interoperability? Can you type in the chat box? What is interoperability? Distributed application we understood, but we want to achieve distributed applications with the interoperability. What is the meaning of interoperability? What is the meaning of interoperability? Come on. What is interoperability? Not specific to any language, not specific to any platform. Those are called as interoperability. Not specific to any language, not specific to any platform. Those are called as interoperable applications. So when we are developing distributed applications, our applications should be interoperable. When we are developing any distributed application, our applications should be interoperable. So it's not like Java application can communicate with only Java. .NET application can communicate with only .NET. No. Java application should be able to communicate with the .NET application. .NET application should be able to communicate with the Java application. Then only we can call them as interoperable applications. Distributed application with interoperability. If one application is communicating with another application, then that is called distributed application. The main reason to develop the distributed application is code reusability and loosely coupling. When you go for the distributed application, mainly two actors will be available. One is called provider, another one is called consumer. The application which is giving services to other application is called provider application. The application which is accessing services from other application is called consumer application. When we are developing distributed applications, we need to talk about interoperability. Interoperability nothing but irrespective of the language, irrespective of the platform, if two applications are communicating with each other, then those are called as interoperable applications. How do we achieve this interoperability, guys? Java application is available, .NET application is available. How do we achieve this interoperability? In order to achieve the interoperability, we are going to send the request and we are going to get the response, right? Consumer application will send the request to the provider application. provider application is sending the response to the consumer application. Now, consumer application is available. Here there is a end user. This end user want to book a train ticket by using Make My Trip application. Now, Make My Trip application will collect the passenger data, will send it to the IRCTC in the form of XML or JSON. Okay. In order to achieve the interoperability, the consumer application and provider application are going to communicate with the XML or JSON data. Consumer application will send the XML data or JSON data to the provider application. Provider application will read the JSON, will perform the operations, and will send the response back to the consumer in the form of XML and JSON. So we are going to exchange the data from one application to another application in the XML format or in the JSON format, because XML and JSON are interoperable formats. Java can understand XML, .NET also can understand the XML. Python can understand the XML, Node.js also can understand the XML. Same thing with the JSON also. JSON is a universal format to represent the data. JSON is a universal format to represent the data. All the languages will support for the JSON format. All the languages will support for JSON format. Now, here, end user is available, is a client. End user is available, is a client. Client want to book a train ticket. So to book the train ticket, client is using Make My Trip application. Make My Trip application is having some UI. Then that client will book the ticket by using Make My Trip, right? So Make My Trip application will collect some information from the client saying that what's your name, mail ID, phone number, Aadhaar number, journey date, train number, from, to, all that information it is going to collect from the client. Then same information it will send it to IRCTC in the JSON format. Make My Trip application will take the data from the client, will send to the IRCTC. Why? Because in the Make My Trip application, actual logic is not available to book the ticket. In the Make My Trip application, actual business logic is not available to book the ticket. To book the ticket, business logic available in the IRCTC. So that is the reason what Make My Trip application will do. Make My Trip application will collect the data from the client and will send that data to the IRCTC in the XML format or in the JSON format. Then Make My Trip application will send the data to JSON data to IRCTC. IRCTC application will read the JSON, then will book the ticket and will send the ticket information back to the Make My Trip in the JSON. So the communication between consumer and provider will happen through JSON data. The communication between consumer application and provider application is happening through JSON data. Earlier, people used to communicate by using XML data, but nowadays XML is outdated. People are going for only JSON as a mediator between consumer and provider. In order to achieve this interoperability, we will use XML or JSON format to transfer data from one application to another application. Okay, so to achieve interoperability, we will use XML or JSON format to transfer data from one application to another application. Getting my point? Distributed applications we are going to develop. In those distributed applications, we need to achieve interoperability. To achieve that interoperability, we will use XML or JSON format to transfer the data from one application to another application. Why we need to use XML and JSON? XML and JSON formats are universal. All languages will support for this. All languages will understand these formats. So XML and JSON, not only for Java, all the programming languages will understand this XML and JSON. That's why in the distributed application development, we are going to use these XML and JSON formats to achieve interoperability. to achieve interoperability. Now, you imagine Google Pay you are using to transfer money. Google Pay is one application, bank is another application. How the Google Pay is transferring money from one account to another account? Google Pay will communicate with your bank application. Google Pay will send the data to the bank application in the JSON format. Bank application will do the operation and Google Pay will give the response back. Got it? Are you able to follow this? What is consumer, what is provider, and how consumer and provider will communicate? Are you guys able to understand what is consumer, what is provider, how the consumer and provider will communicate, how to achieve interoperability? What is the meaning of interoperability? Irrespective of the platform, irrespective of the language, if two applications are communicating, then those are called interoperable applications. How do we achieve that interoperability? How do we achieve that interoperability? To achieve the interoperability, we are using JSON format as a mediator to transfer the data from consumer to provider and provider to consumer. Earlier, people used to work with XML data to develop these kind of distributed applications. But nowadays, people are developing distributed applications by using JSON data. Okay. And if you see your front-end application also. So currently in the market, people are using Angular or React for the front-end application, right? So Angular or React will be available for the front-end. In the back-end, services will be available. As I told you, Flights API will be available in the back-end. Trains API will be available in the back-end. Trains API will be available in the back-end. And Hotels API also will be available in the back-end. Now, these back-end applications are called distributed applications. They will contain only business logic. Your front-end application will be available. Front-end application will send the request to the back-end application with the JSON data. Back-end application will send the response to front-end application in the form of JSON. Can we call these applications also as a distributed applications? Guys, can we call these applications also as a distributed application? Front-end logic is available in one project. Back-end logic is available in the another project. These applications also called as distributed application. Front-end application will send the data to back-end in the JSON format. Back-end application will send the response to front-end application in the form of JSON only. So front-end, back-end, two different projects, right? These are also called as a distributed application. Front-end project will be developed by using one technology. Back-end project will be developed by using another technology. So one application is communicating with another application. This is also called as distributed application. So here, the way that we are communicating, right? One application to another application. So this is called as web services. Okay. Through internet, one application is providing the services to another application. So this is called web services concept. Backend application is running in one system. It is providing the service through internet. Using that URL of the backend, we will communicate with that using frontend. Frontend will communicate with the backend, right? It is called as a web service. One project is communicating with another project. Here, instead of writing everything in one application, we are distributing the user interface to one project. business logic to another project. Here, we are making our application loosely coupled by using distributed architecture. We are making our application loosely coupled by using distributed architecture. Okay. So in the real time, these are two scenarios you can see. One project is communicating with another project for the code reusability. Okay. And one provider can have multiple consumers. So IRCTC is the provider. Make My Trip is consuming the services from IRCTC. Yatra also consuming the services from the IRCTC. Okay. So one project is communicating with another project to reuse the business logic. To reuse the business logic. And the next one, instead of developing everything in one application, we want to distribute the logic. So for that, we are going to follow this front-end development and back-end development. Front-end will be developed using Angular or React. Back-end will be developed as REST APIs, Flight API, Train API, Hotels API will be separate. Front-end application will send the JSON data to the back-end application. Back-end application also will send the response to the front-end in the form of JSON. Why we are using JSON format here? Why not Java objects to transfer the data? Why we are using JSON? What is the need of going for JSON data in the distributed application, guys? What is the need of going for JSON data in the distributed application? Come on. I want all of you to respond. Guys, what is the need of going for JSON data to send and receive the information from one application to another application? Why we need to go for JSON? Interoperability. Because when we are going for distributed application development, provider and consumer may not be developed by using same technology. Provider and consumer may not be developed by using same technology. Provider is Java, consumer is .NET. Still, those two applications should communicate. So still those two applications should communicate with each other. So that's why we are going to use JSON. JSON is a universal data format to send and receive the information from one application to another application. By using this JSON, we can achieve interoperability. We can achieve interoperability. Okay. Now, so what are the distributed application we understood? The architecture also we understood, right? So one application communicating with another application, which is called a distributed application. The main reason to develop them, code reusability and loosely coupling. In the distributed application, two actors will be available. One is called provider, another one is called consumer. The application which is giving services to other application is called provider application. The application which is accessing services from other application is called consumer application. When we are developing the distributed application, we need to keep interoperability in our mind. Okay, interoperability means irrespective of the platform and language, if two applications are communicating, then only those are called as interoperable applications. To achieve this interoperability, we will use XML or JSON format to transfer data from one application to another application. XML and JSON formats are universal formats. All languages will understand these formats. So that's why people will use XML or JSON to develop distributed applications. That's okay. The next one, how to develop distributed applications. So what are the technologies that are available in the market to develop distributed applications? What are the technologies are available to develop distributed applications? Okay. So the first technology that came into market is called Corba. Corba was the first technology that came into market to develop distributed application. After that, To overcome the problems of the Corba, RMI came into picture. To overcome the problems of the RMI, EJB came into picture. To overcome the problems of the EJB, SOAP web services came into picture. To overcome the problems of the SOAP web services, RESTful services came into picture. Are you guys able to understand? What are the distributed technologies available in the market? The first distributed technology is Corba. Initially, long back, very long back. So Corba was used to develop distributed application. So there are some challenges with the Corba. That's why RMI came into picture. To overcome the problems of RMI, EJB came into picture. To overcome the problems of the EJB, SOAP web services came into picture. To overcome the problems of the SOAP web services, RESTful services came into picture. Earlier, in order to develop these SOAP web services, Sun Microsystem provided two APIs, guys. JAX RPC API it provided, JAX WS also it provided. But currently, these SOAP web services are outdated in the market. People are not using SOAP. RESTful services which are trending in the market. Okay, to develop these RESTful services, we have a API called JAX RS API is available and Spring REST is available. This is a trending. Okay, so these are the distributed technologies that are available in the market to develop distributed applications. Okay, when I started my career, we used to develop SOAP-based web services by using these things. So after 3-4 years of my first job, then my project is upgraded from SOAP web services to RESTful services. At that time, to develop the RESTful services, we used JAX RS. But currently, this is JAX RS also outdated in the market. So people are using Spring REST in order to develop RESTful services in the market. Are you guys getting my point? What are the technologies that are available to develop a distributed application? What are the technologies available to develop distributed application? Corba, RMI, EJB, SOAP web services. SOAP web services also outdated. Earlier, people used to develop distributed application by using SOAP web services. To develop the SOAP web services in the Java, Sun Microsystem provided JAX RPC and JAX WS. JAX RPC is one API, JAX WS is another API. But currently, nobody using SOAP web services in the real time. People are using RESTful services. How to develop RESTful services in the Java? To develop RESTful services in the Java, we can use JAX RS API provided by Sun Microsystem. But people are not using JAX RS also nowadays. People are using Spring REST to develop web services, or we can say distributed applications. So as part of this course, we are going to learn how to develop REST APIs by using Spring with Spring Boot. As part of this, we are going to learn how to develop REST API by using Spring Boot. Are you getting my point? Yeah. But before going to start this REST API development, guys, first we need to learn about JSON. What is JSON? How to work with JSON? How to convert Java object to JSON, JSON data to Java object. How to work with before going to develop the REST API. Because if you want to understand REST API development, first you need to know about JSON, how to convert Java object to JSON format, how to convert JSON data to Java object. If you know that part, then it will be easy to develop REST APIs in the Java. So what we need to learn first to develop the REST APIs, guys, by using Java? to develop REST APIs in the Java, we need to learn how to work with JSON data. What is JSON? How JSON data will be available? How to represent the data in the JSON format? How to convert Java object to JSON and JSON data to Java object. Okay. Yes. Before going to understand JSON, anybody having any questions? You can raise your hand in the Zoom. I will give option to unmute your mic. Yeah. Varma, what is your question?
Hi, good morning, sir.
Very good morning.
Sir, two applications, if they are interacting with each other, say in that scenario, one is consumer, another one is provider. So
Yes.
another case, so like at a time they will act like two in one, like one provider
Yes,
and
sir.
one consumer, and one.
Yes, sir. You can see like this. So here, Make My Trip is available, acting as a consumer. It is accessing the IRCTC.
Yes.
IRCTC acting as a provider. Now, in the IRCTC, you are paying the amount, right? Then IRCTC application will communicate with the bank application. Then for the bank application, IRCTC is the consumer. Okay. For IRCTC, bank is the provider. Like this, one application can play both roles also.
Yes, sir. Okay. Okay. Fine. Okay. Thank you.
You got my point, right? Guys, see here, one application can act as a provider as well as consumer also. Now, if you see here, banking application is available. You want to do the payment for your ticket by using IRCTC. In the IRCTC, you are booking a ticket and you need to do the payment. Payment you need to do through your bank account. So IRCTC application will connect with the bank for the amount related stuff. So then IRCTC will act as a consumer for the bank and bank is a provider for the IRCTC. When you see this from Make My Trip is consuming IRCTC. For Make My Trip, IRCTC is a provider. For bank, IRCTC is a consumer. One application can play both roles also. For some scenarios, it will act as a provider. For some scenarios, it will act as a consumer. Yeah. Tirumalesh, what is your question?
Sir, what is the difference between RESTful services and web services, sir?
Both are same, sir. Some people will call it as a web services. Some people will call it as a RESTful services. Some people will call it as a REST API. So generally, web service nothing but any application which is providing services through internet is called as a web service.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yep. Ravi, what is your question? Ravi, Nandeshwar, Shankar, Uday, Vikram, Gani. What are your questions?
Before going to start RESTful services, can you please list out some challenges that you have faced using SOAP web services?
Sir, SOAP web services will support once we develop the REST API, then at the end I will tell you what are the challenges with the SOAP. Okay, in the SOAP web services, we can use only XML data and it is a little difficult to develop the SOAP web services. So that is outdated in the market. People are using REST API. Once REST API syllabus completed, I will show you one example on the SOAP and I will tell you what are the challenges. Okay. Good. Anyone else having any question, guys? Can you unmute your mic?
Sir.
Sir, Shankar here.
Yes, tell me.
Hello, sir.
Always REST services can be used between only REST service should be used between front end and back end application, front end and back end within one application, or only REST services will be used for
Sir, front end back end communication REST services will be used, sir, because front end applications will deal with the JSON data. So that's why we are going to use the REST services when we are developing front end and back end. If you go for the SOAP web services, SOAP web service will support only for XML data. They don't support for the JSON data.
So in industry in general, all the companies, I mean, whoever are developing a web application, they will be using some kind of web service, whether it is a REST or SOAP, between
Yes.
front end and back end, right? There is no other alternate, right?
No alternate.
No, gRPC, WebSockets, JMS.
I mean,
That
I'm
those,
talking about
those
the
are
current industry practice.
yes, sir. Those are different, sir. JMS and all those are different concepts. Those are message queues. We'll talk about the message queues in the coming classes.
gRPC, WebSockets. WebSockets
Yeah,
also.
that is also different, sir. When you want, so like chat applications, if you want to develop, then WebSockets will be used.
Okay.
Thank you,
Sure,
sir.
sir.
Sir, what is disadvantage of REST APIs?
REST API advantage is they will support
sir.
for multiple formats of the data. You can represent the data in the XML format as well as in the JSON format when you go for the REST API. And REST API is very
Sir,
lightweight,
disadvantage, sir.
loosely coupled.
Sir,
Sorry, can you come again?
sir, disadvantage REST APIs.
Disadvantage of the REST API, there is no disadvantage, sir. If disadvantage is available, why people will develop every project by using REST API? There is no disadvantage.
Sir, we are depend every time we are depend on another
That's not
program.
that's not disadvantage, sir. We are making it loosely coupled. If you want, you can develop everything in one application also, no problem. So we are developing multiple applications to achieve loosely coupling. It's not a disadvantage.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Sir.
Yep.
Sir, what is JSON data and Jackson API?
That is the next topic, sir.
Okay.
Hello,
Sir, whenever we face an interview, so they're asking common question like, can you compare SOAP and REST? So can you explain?
I will
Thank
compare.
you. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Hello, sir.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
This is Ganesh. Sir, actually, when you are using service consumer application like Make My Trip, for every time it has to trigger two APIs, right? For to service provider to communicate to the service provider, like one API, and from front end to back end another API. So every time they're like
right. Front end application will trigger the request to the backend. Make My Trip REST API. Make My Trip REST API will trigger the request to the IRCT. So two calls will happen. Front end to Make My Trip one call. Make My Trip to IRCTC one more call.
Okay, sir. Okay.
All good. Fine, guys. So with this we understood. With this we understood what is distributed application, why we need to develop distributed applications, and what is distributed application architecture, then what is interoperability, and what are the distributed technologies are available. So I'm repeating, if one project is communicating with another project is called distributed application. The main reason to go for distributed applications to achieve code reusability as well as for loosely coupling. So in the distributed application architecture, mainly two actors will be available. One is called as a provider, another one is called as a consumer. The application which is giving services to other application is called as a provider application. The application which is accessing the services from other application is called as a consumer application. Then what is interoperability? Irrespective of the platform and language, if two applications are communicating, then those are called as interoperable applications. How do we achieve that interoperability? To achieve the interoperability, we will use either XML data or JSON data for the communication. Why we are going with XML or JSON? XML and JSON formats are universal formats. All languages will understand these formats. Then, in order to develop these distributed applications, what are the distributed technologies are available? So in the market, there are several distributed technologies available like Corba, RMI, EJB, SOAP web services, and RESTful services. So SOAP web services also outdated in the market. Earlier, people used to develop the SOAP web services by using JAX RPC and JAX WS. But now, currently in the market, people are using RESTful services. To develop the RESTful services, we have two options, guys. One is JAX RS, another one is Spring REST. JAX RS also outdated in the market. Currently, people are using Spring REST to develop RESTful services. Okay, good. So before going to start our discussion related to RESTful services, we need to learn about JSON, because currently people are developing the REST APIs by using JSON data. Okay, so consumer will send the JSON data to the provider. Provider also will send the JSON data to the consumer. In distributed applications, we will use JSON as a mediator between consumer and provider. Okay. In the distributed applications, we will use JSON as a mediator between consumer and provider. Okay. JSON is interoperable. JSON is interoperable. So that means JSON is not specific to only one language. Multiple languages are going to support for the JSON. In the distributed applications, we will use JSON as a mediator between consumer and provider. JSON is interoperable. JSON is very lightweight. JSON will represent data in key value format. Okay. In distributed applications, we will use JSON as a mediator between consumer and provider. JSON is interoperable. JSON is very lightweight. JSON will represent the data in the key value format. Okay. Now, the syntax of the JSON, how the JSON data will be available. JSON data will be available like this: ID 101, name some Ashok, something like this. Okay. Gender, key and value. Key is a string, value can be anything. Okay. So I'm going to represent the JSON data like this. So this is the syntax of JSON. What is JSON? JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation. JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation. So where we are going to use this JSON? In distributed applications, we will use JSON as a mediator between consumer and provider. This JSON is interoperable. This JSON is very lightweight. JSON will represent the data in the key value format. Okay. Now, to convert JSON data to Java object to JSON data, we will use Jackson API. Okay. To convert Java object to JSON data and JSON data to Java object, we will use Jackson API. Okay, which is a third-party API. So Jackson is a third-party API. By using this Jackson API, we can convert Java object to JSON and JSON to Java object. Okay, so my application is a Java-based application. Java is a object-oriented programming language. Everything will be represented in the form of. We are developing our application by using Java. Java is a object-oriented programming language. Everything will be represented in the form of object. Now, I want to convert my Java object to JSON data and JSON data to Java object. To convert Java object to JSON data and JSON data to Java object, what we are going to use? We are going to use Jackson API. Jackson API is a third-party library. Jackson is a third-party library. Jackson is a third-party library. So how do we use third-party libraries in our project? To use third-party libraries in our project, we will use dependency. So we will create one Maven project and we will add Jackson as a dependency. So by using that Jackson, we can convert Java object to JSON and JSON to Java object. Okay. So in the Jackson API provided object mapper class. Jackson API provided object mapper class to perform conversions. Okay. So now what kind of conversions we are going to do? I am going to have Java object. My Java object should be converted to JSON data. So to convert our Java object to the JSON data, we will use Jackson API. Inside the Jackson API, we are having a class called object mapper. Mapper is equal to new object mapper. Object mapper is equal to new object mapper. Now what I will do, mapper dot write object, mapper dot write object. Pass your object as a parameter. Convert to JSON. Convert object to JSON. To convert the Java object to JSON, we are having a class called object mapper class. In the object mapper class, we have a method called write object method. What this write object method will do? Write object method will write the object to the JSON format. Now, similarly, we have another method called read object method. Write object is available and read object is available. What is the meaning of read object? What is the meaning of read object? Read object is used to specify from which file you want to read it. You specify the file name. Okay. Read the JSON to Java. Convert JSON to Java object. Here, convert Java object to JSON. So we are using Jackson API to deal with the JSON data in the Java applications. By using this Jackson API, we can convert Java object to JSON, JSON data to Java object. So what is the class available in the Jackson API? There is a class called object mapper class available. In that object mapper, we have the methods. Write object method is available. Read object method is available. What is the meaning of write object? It is used to convert Java object to JSON. Read object, convert JSON data to Java object. Like this. JSON. JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation. It is used as a mediator between consumer and provider in the distributed application. This JSON is interoperable. JSON is very lightweight to represent the data. JSON will represent the data in the key value format. So a JSON file syntax will be available like this. Now, my application is a Java application. My application will represent the data in the object format. How do we convert that object to JSON, JSON to object? To convert Java object to JSON data and JSON data to Java object, we will use Jackson API. What is this Jackson? Jackson is a third-party library. Jackson API provided object mapper class to perform conversions. Java to JSON, JSON to Java. In this Jackson API, there is a class called object mapper class is available. Inside the object mapper, we are having a method called write object method and read object. What is that write object method? It is used to convert Java object to JSON. What is the read object method? It is used to convert JSON data to Java object. It is used to convert JSON data to Java object. Are you guys able to understand? Are you guys able to understand what is JSON? Why we need to go for JSON? What is JSON and why we need to go for JSON? Irrespective platform means Windows and Linux, guys. The application running in the Windows machine should be able to communicate with the application running in the Linux machine. That is platform independent. Language independent means Java to .NET, .NET to Java. Okay, good. Thank you, guys. In the tomorrow session, we are going to work with the Jackson API. Once we are clear with the Jackson API, we are going to start our REST API development. Okay, good. So tomorrow, can we have the class? Yes, we have the class tomorrow also. I don't want to give holiday on the first day of the new year. So we have the class. Tomorrow we are going to work with the Jackson API. Tomorrow we are going to work with the Jackson API. How to convert Java object to JSON, JSON data to Java object. Okay. So tomorrow we have the class, guys. Yeah. Offline class is also available for tomorrow. Tomorrow offline and online classes are available. Today evening JRTP is not there. JRTP also will start from tomorrow. Today evening JRTP is also not there. Today evening JRTP not there. Tomorrow we have the classes as usual. Tomorrow classes are as usual. Offline and online classes will be available. Okay. I'm going to upload these notes in the portal for JRTP people also. Okay. Good. Thank you, guys. Thank you. With this, I'm stopping for today. We'll meet in the tomorrow session. Tomorrow we have classes at regular time. Yeah. So today evening JRTP class is not there. Tomorrow we have all the classes at regular time. Offline and online will be available. Thank you. We'll see you tomorrow. Wish you Happy New Year in advance. We'll meet in the tomorrow session. Our new year will start with our Jackson API tomorrow. Okay. Thank you, guys. Have a great day. Bye-bye.